This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening. I'm Sabrina Brown. Thank you for joining us. There are increased levels of optimism being expressed by the nation's leader about Grand Bahama's future growth and development. The nation's leader has gone on record outlining how the government is moving on many fronts to restore this island to its former glory, while helping to rebuild the lives of many adversely impacted by economic challenges and devastated by the recent storm. Joan Davis-Roll reports.
The government's plan of action in the aftermath of one of Mother Nature's most destructive force, known as Hurricane Matthew, has been all-encompassing. From a mammoth home repair initiative led by agencies such as NEMA and Urban Renewal 2.0, to the push to reopen the hotel properties severely damaged and forced to close, sending hundreds of workers to the unemployment line. Following the nation's leader address at the Grand Bahama Business Outlook Thursday, the Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Perry Christie, spoke with members of the media regarding a number of pressing issues affecting residents here on this northern island. Foremost, the issue of unemployment.
What do you say about those who are unemployed now? What beacon of hope can you offer to those persons who are looking for employment and are looking to provide for their families?
That we are working assiduously to bring a conclusion to the possible purchase of the hotels. We are anticipating and discussing with Hutchison, notwithstanding the success or otherwise of the purchase, the settlement of their insurance so that the hotels can be repaired. There are active discussions going on. There are active exchanges going on with respect to people who are looking for jobs. We want to minimize the extent to which people who have lost their jobs suffer. Right, and so we are reviewing those considerations, and secondly, we are looking at alternative employment for some of them.
The Prime Minister further outlined the role the government is and must continue to play in restoring investor confidence and returning the island of Grand Bahama to its former place of economic prominence.
I see a great possibility of a really new injection, right, of wonderful brands in the hotel here and a strengthening of the hotel presence here by new operators, some of whom will be coming into this area into this community for the first time.
The nation's leader was then asked about another area of concern: the environmental issues affecting residents living near companies that help to solidify Grand Bahama's position as the industrial capital of the Bahamas.
We are always concerned about pollution. I mean, I was a Minister of Health, 77 to 82. Syntex, we had the Pan American Health Organization come in to do pollution, ground pollution studies, air pollution studies. A long time ago, when I was Minister of Health, were done. They have been followed by the Pan American Health Organization engaging in other studies, again, other experts being brought in because we are concerned about it. And the assessments to date have all indicated, okay, that people were not in harm's way. But again, whenever we hear concerns, we investigate those concerns, and we continue to do so because people must be satisfied when it comes to their health.
The question then put to the nation's leader was whether or not residents affected will be relocated.
Again, that's recommendations have to come for that. Clearly, when you begin to make an assessment as to whether people are in harm's way, the implication is you may have to relocate them. But if the results come out to say that there is no need for that because the incidence of diseases that have been lifted up are not related to the presence of an industry or industrial concern, then we have to take that into consideration.
Joan Davis-Roll, ZNS Network News.
While on Grand Bahama, the Prime Minister also speaking to the issue of brush fires and the environmental concerns arising out of that massive fire which affected residents of Jubilee Gardens in the nation's capital. The nation's leader says the government has mounted a massive cleanup of that area in attempts to bring relief to residents affected. He spoke specifically about the government's plan of action.
For example, they had smoke damage. We were going to restore that. That if they had walls dirtied up because of smoke, we will fix that. In other words, we will go into the community with a view to determining how they were impacted and how best we can put them back in the position they were in, or even a little better than they were in. And that's what we're talking about. So that's like painting, fumigating, industrial cleaning, that kind of situation, because there were no houses were destroyed by the fire.
The Prime Minister stated that the goal now is to establish a body to effectively address such issues.
It's really the future of management of the site. Happily for us, the fire wasn't started on the site itself. It came from some bushfire and ignited it. And we had a huge amount of waste there from the hurricane that was stored there. And we had a compactor trying to do that. But look, for me right now, I want to, in the shortest possible time, have a full management team on the condition that that management team may be made up with Bahamians, but they have in their mix someone who operates those industrial sites now in the United States of America.
In other news, the government is preparing for Phase 2 of the National Health Insurance Program. Tonight, the project manager gives an update. Italia Hall has the story.
Project Manager of NHI, Dr. DeLon Brennan, says Phase 2 of National Health Insurance is expected to roll out in a few weeks. He says this means that Bahamians should now have their new National Insurance Board smart cards. That card will give Bahamians full access to all of the primary health care services that will be introduced through NHI Bahamas.
What that really means is our primary care providers, including internists, family medicine providers, pediatricians, OBGYNs for prenatal services, will be able to have those patients come into their practices as an outpatient. They'll be able to present their card and get the services in those practices without having to worry about cost at the point of service. What it does is it means that Bahamians and legal residents of Bahamas will have access to healthcare services in both the public sector and the private sector that they haven't had access to before, and it removes the barrier of cost at the point of service.
Brennan says there will be a total of 5 phases, and during this phase, no contributions are required by employers or employees.
So there's no new tax, there's nothing that comes along with it that requires a payment, either at point of service or as a prepayment mechanism into the service that is going to come out. So it really is one of those things where Bahamians will have the opportunity to see, touch, and feel what it is that NHI Bahamas can do to them without necessarily having to worry about that cost at all.
The project manager is asking all healthcare providers to be a part of the system.
Our first round of healthcare provider sign-up is actually coming to an end at the end of March. So as of March 31st, then we're looking to see what the enrollment is or what the registration of our providers is so that we can then move and roll over into that phase where now people will be able to sign on and have their new provider. If we don't have those providers in, then obviously someone wouldn't be able to choose their provider. So we encourage the beneficiaries or the residents of the Bahamas to go out, let your primary care provider know that you're signing up for the card, you plan on using NHI, and ask them if they're going to be a part of the NHI Bahamas program as well.
Brennan is encouraging Bahamians who may have questions about NHI to visit their website at www.nhibahamas.gov.bs or call 242-396-8500. It's Halia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Climate change is an issue of concern for countries around the world. Climate change causes shifts in air and ocean currents, which can change weather patterns. Tonight, a local meteorologist talks about what may be contributing to climate change. Senior Meteorological Officer Kirk James says the maximum daily temperature in January and February reached the mid-80s, about 3 degrees above normal. He explains why we are experiencing warmer days during the winter season.
One view is that the introduction of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, aerosols and all those different things, and of course tied into that, people are going to say global warming, okay? But greenhouse gases, the aerosols, increasing it in the upper atmosphere, accounting to a hole in the ozone area, and more the hole in the ozone layer and more radiation coming through. The ozone layer is supposed to be a protection. Now, if you put a hole in that, you allow more ultraviolet rays to come through. That's very harmful.
He says there is evidence that winter seasons have gotten shorter over the years.
If we use the continent of the North America, that's Canada and the US, as an example for the West, of course, they've been noticing that spring has been coming early over the past, for more than 10 years, early as much as 3 to 5 days earlier. And now it has been said to this year that spring is as much as 22 days earlier. That's about 3 weeks earlier. Someone on this very island asked just last week, they say, why is it that the trees have been blossoming early this year? Quite frankly, I didn't notice that, okay, but someone noticed it, and that's significant. And it's tied in with spring being a bit early.
But according to the weather expert, there is a downside to the early arrival of spring.
Interesting thing about spring coming early, of course, while this will be nice for us humans, this has an adverse effect, of course, on the plants, okay, plants and different, the crops and the ecosystems, all right, it has an adverse effect on them because the way the creators designed them, they go in cycles. You know, they know when it's going to bloom and blossom and the temperature is going to continue.
James says warmer air temperatures does not mean the upcoming hurricane season will be more intense.
Hurricanes, the tropical cyclones, feed on the heat engine of the sea as opposed to the air, the atmosphere out there, the sea. So you got to be concerned with warmer temperatures, water temperatures. That's not the only ingredients. The average sea temperature around this time will probably be about 78. You know, the air temperature is in the 80s now.
Stay with us. There's more news after this.